So I've been a bit sidetracked, and now I'm digging a hole, which does happen a lot in Minecraft, to be fair. When you've got a new build in mind, you've got to dig out a hole for it first. So I was watching some Hermitcraft, as I often do, and in particular, Pearlescent Moon's most recent video. Now, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. I put a link in the description. But as part of that episode, Pearlescent Moon built a very cool Mace fighting arena, set up like a gorgeous ballroom, and with bits of redstone and music to add to the whole experience. Very basically, it looked extremely fun to play in, so I started to wonder, maybe I should try to build my own. There were some obstacles, though, to that idea, but I eventually convinced myself to at least give it a try. So, first problem. Regular armor stands get blown away by windburst. You can hit them with a mace and launch yourself upwards with the enchantment, but the armor stands will not stay in one place. They kind of get thrown everywhere. Especially considering that this is currently a solo world, I really need those armor stands to make this thing work. Solution: I got the armor stand mod that they use on the Hermitcraft server, which is called Armor Poser. With that mod, you can turn off gravity on armor stands, keeping them from flying everywhere. You can also pose them, which will make decorating a bit more fun here. I've sort of considered getting this mod for a while, by the way. There's a lot of really cool decoration things that you can do with it, but I hadn't gotten around to trying it out until now. So we'll see what else I do with it in the future. The second challenge, and the most intimidating one for me at least, was the redstone. I wasn't planning on making anything as fancy or as automatic as Pearlescent Moons, but I wanted to at least include the rising pillars and the slime launchers. Now, I've mentioned before, but I'm not particularly good with redstone, so I was worried about this bit. But I did catch a glimpse of how at least part of the redstone worked in the original video, so I decided to try to figure it out based on that first. Basically, what I saw was part of the slime launchers, specifically the part that hid them in the floor. So, they involved having a redstone block, putting a sticky piston on top of that so that it's activated, and then whatever your flooring block is on top of that. And then you just have a series of sticky pistons. And you just have to make sure that you pull away this redstone block first, so that you can then pull away the no longer extended piston. So as long as you pull the redstone block out first, it deactivates the sticky piston so that you can scoot this and the flooring block out of the way, making room for the slime pit. I understood this much, at very least. So I decided to make an attempt at the device. Honestly, it didn't turn out too bad. It does work. It's a little clunky. See, it looks like a regular plain floor. You couldn't tell there's definitely not a pit under this. It does do all of the things I wanted it to do, it's just clunky and easy to break. For example, if you flip the switches in the wrong order, it breaks it. Which I think this is correct. I hope so. I don't really want to fix this. And... Boop. Okay, yep. See, it works. It does work. As you can tell, I had utmost confidence in my slightly janky redstone. But it does, like I said, it does do all of the things I wanted it to do. It has the hidden pit in the floor. Plus, if you jump down into the slime, you can activate the slime launcher. So again, it does do everything it's supposed to do. It's just clunky. So, with that attempt made, and with no real idea of how to improve it from there, I turned back to the source material, because Pearl live streams, and she had a live stream VOD of putting the redstone into her build. Essentially, I just watched it and copied her builds, which are over here. This gave me two functional examples to work with, but these wouldn't necessarily fit in my area. If you didn't notice, Pearl's ballroom is a big rectangle, mine's a circle, so I would need to modify things to fit. So I did. With a lot of fiddling and some problem solving, I got stuff to work, but I will show you how those turned out as I get them built into my actual survival world. So first of the two redstone devices that I'm building here is the flying machine, which is being used to create extending pillars for the arena. Now, this one isn't too hard. I can't say I fully understand how it works, but I didn't really need to modify this to fit in my own design. I just basically copied the way that Pearl did it, and all I had to change was the wiring. And also I did have to rebuild these a few times in both testing and in the final build, because I did break them a few times, and at least one flew away and tried to escape me. I had to be careful about these, because if you activated any of the observers before you meant to, then things could go wrong. Later on you might see me putting immovable blocks on top of them. That's just to keep them from escaping. Speaking of immovable blocks, I had a bit of trouble with those because both of these redstone machines needed either blocks that couldn't be moved by pistons or blocks that didn't stick to slime. That's not a very long list. The one I found had maybe 30, give or take, depending on whether you were looking for the pushing and pulling or the not sticking to slime ones. Some of the blocks I could cover with carpets, but some of them I couldn't, so I did have to decide which one fit the color scheme best. And wasn't interactable. A challenge I texted several friends about to help me decide. Okay, next up is the slime launcher. Now this one was a bit more difficult, but I feel like I have a better understanding of why and how it does what it does. For my design as opposed to Pearl's design, I just had to make it smaller. So while the original, I think, has 12 slime blocks across the bottom, mine only has 4. So I just made it shorter, which for the most part did work. Unfortunately, there was one very specific problem. In Pearl's design, there is a note block that you hit to activate the actual slime launcher. Problem: whenever I opened and then closed my smaller version, the piston at the bottom doing the launching mechanism would push the whole thing up and down repeatedly, and it would not stop until I cut off the redstone. I could not, for the longest time, figure out why it was doing this, because it didn't have this problem in Pearl's version. Eventually, the best conclusion I can come to is that because mine is smaller, the piston can move more blocks more easily. So when the whole thing is closed, the redstone blocks being pushed on top of the slime block puts a pulse of redstone through the note block, and thus the launching mechanism. Now, in Pearl's version, the whole thing is big enough that the sticky piston can't actually move it. So, her design does have the same pulse, it just doesn't do anything besides making the piston fire off once and not affect anything else. But because mine is so much smaller, the piston firing off once does actually move all of the slime blocks, and then the now attached redstone blocks, which then brings them down and back up again, which activates the note block again, which then starts just a cycle of pulsing over and over and over again. There is probably a better way to fix that, but my solution was to switch out the note block with a barrel, because the note block was being detected by an observer to send the redstone pulse to activate the launcher, and I can get the same signal with a barrel being opened instead of a note block being hit. So that was one of the bigger specific challenges that I had here. The only other stuff was a lot of scooting things around and reorienting things to try to make everything fit at least roughly within the space I knew I was gonna have. Otherwise, it worked surprisingly well. Okay, so the redstone is in. It's all wired up. Let's see if it works. It works! I'm so glad it works. That was a lot of redstone, and a lot out of my comfort zone. But now I'm gonna get this place decorated and fully set up, and I will be back to show you how it all turns out. I finished it, it's done, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. I will admit, I'm glad that I chose not to record the detailing process for this one, because it took so long that I wouldn't be able to store the footage, let alone know what to do with it. Plus, it let me relax and play around with things a bit more without having to worry about making it look nice immediately. As you can see, I've added a honey elevator to the center, just to add to the number of ways you can get up without relying on wind charges. And of course, there are the armor stands. As I mentioned before, this is my first time messing with the Armor Poser mod, and I honestly had a lot of fun with it. I decided to make the armor stands an attacking horde of zombies and skeletons. So I put them around the center, like they're all coming after someone. It was also fun to figure out all of their poses and actually make use of some of the random armor that I had laying around. I did have more skeleton heads than zombie heads though, so I will probably switch some of the helmets out with new zombie heads the next time there's a thunderstorm and I can get more. I've also added a balcony up here for spectators, or anyone who wants to jump up here like I just did. I have Windburst 2 on my mace, by the way, so most of the heights are made with that in mind. Back here, there's a hallway behind the balcony, and there is a way to get up here without a mace. Then, back down here, there is a hallway connecting each of the 4 entrances into the arena itself. This barrel here is for wind charges, and the frame is where I'd put another enchanted mace if I had it. Unfortunately, those would require Windburst, which you can only get from Trial Chamber loot, so I only have the one for now. But if I get more, then I will put them in these item frames in each hallway. There's also a room like this in each one, to set spawn, drop off stuff, things like that. Oh, and down here is the redstone access. Please ignore the shulkers and chests everywhere. I will clean that up later, because it's about time that I actually get to try this thing out. yeah, I'll be playing around with this for a while. See you in the next video. Bye! I'm gonna crouch, I'm gonna turn, I'm gonna keep digging. I'm gonna go off the screen. And I'm hiding now. I've also added... Dang it. Oh, I stole his bow. Ow! Give me that back. Give it, give it, give it, give it, give it, give it, give. But I hadn't gotten around to trying it until now. So we'll see what else I do with it in the future. Now that I have the power.